And I'm gonna be high.
Good on you, Donald. I'm the Rocket Man, yeah.
I'm a rocket man. And I'm gonna be
Rocket Man.
I'm a rocket man.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We're going to be talking today about the new NMFTA changes to the NMFC guidelines. If you're in the LTL world, that makes sense to you. If not, we're going to break it down. Basically, for years and years and years, there's been a buildup of these commodity-specific NMFC codes, very, old school. Everything was very specific, one code, one product. Everybody talked for a long time, maybe a decade, maybe more, about making it more density based. And here we are. It's more density based. I don't know the exact number. It's over 2,000 items have some type of a change. A big ticket item is that it used to be 11 subclasses for density, and now it's 13. And so class 150 is back, so back. And I think 55 is in there as well. So we can get into it. I'm going to introduce the folks here. I'm just the moderator. I brought on the experts to talk about this. We've got Lance Healy, the CEO and founder of Freight Facts, also the founder of Banyan Technology, the man, the godfather of APIs is what I call him. And so he's calling in. We've got Scooter Sayers, the director of all things scanning at Cubiscan. And you don't scan it, you Cubiscan it. And we've also got the rate hero. He's helping everybody understand LTL, Curtis Garrett. How you guys doing?
Great.
Doing great.
Fantastic, man.
All right, let's kick it off. I'm going to go roundtable. Anybody can take the question. Who wants to give me an answer of why density-based has been pushed and like why this change was maybe needed? And then we're going to go further back. We're going to say, what is the NMFTA? And is it a trade school or is it an association? And how are they influencing the market? So why density-based?
I think the biggest, most obvious reason is, you look at any major LTL carrier, specifically the national carriers, and line haul is going to be the biggest single component when it comes to cost in comparison to pickup, delivery, cross-docking, admin, any other overhead or cost-driving function. And if you look at line haul, it's space on the trailer, utilize space, which, density really helps you pinpoint. So back in the day, there's carriers, some are still here, some aren't, that didn't even double stack freight in their line haul trailers. It was just cover the floor, shut the door. And all they had to go on was weight and piece count and weight.
Tonnage.
They had no idea how much room in that trailer was utilized. So that would be my kind of first and foremost. There's a lot of other, details and answers, but density drives line haul cost. Line haul cost drives the majority of LTL carrier costs.
Yeah, you can draw a line from line haul to OR pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I think we've had some big changes over the last 10 years or so that have made this possible. The biggest one being that the carriers themselves have deployed dimensioners across their docks. They now are gathering data. So they're now in a position to be able to see a change like this come out. And just like what Curtis said, space or cube, that is a huge cost factor for them. And it gets complicated for everybody when the NMF works like it used to, which it utilizes a lot of proxies for density. Density is the biggest driver in the classification process, but historically it's been a driver from proxies like are the chairs nested? Is the object made of metal versus plastic? Is it intended for industrial versus residential use? Sometimes these are really, really weird, hard to understand type designations, and you got to take the box apart to go figure out what it's made of sometimes. And really, I think the carriers are now at a point where they say, you know what, I really don't care too much about what you're putting in the box. I really care how big is the pallet, how much does it weigh. That's what drives my costs, not what's in the box.
Yeah. It's simplifying the codes, to a density, helps people to say whether it's this size box or that size box or a bag in a box. We don't have to
drill down into the 2,500 page book or class it, application to try to figure it out. It's once it's a density structure, then it's easy. Okay, we know what that is, regardless of what the product within that code is. So
It's kind of funny because I grew up cutting my teeth in fast class, trying to gamify it and saying, okay, this customer ships desks. But if I can put on the BOL that it's KD, knocked down, and they're nested, or if it's chairs and they're stacked in 3 or more,
mhm.
what are the odds the carrier's going to check to see if it's actually nested 3 or more, or if I'm just going to be able to use class 92.5 instead of class 125, and then I beat out a competitor because they're using the old class. They're doing it the right way. And then there's class bumping. You just put a bunch of weight in these skids and you put them in the box, or just mislabeling the freight. They just put a different label on there, and now this is a tractor part, not an engine. So you can get 77.5 agricultural implement parts instead of going class 85 for the engine. All these little games that were played, I don't know why that all mattered. I used to try to explain to my clients why LTL carriers, like why it was more expensive to ship pillows than it was to ship, wire, a spool of wire, and like go through there. That's easy to explain now, but I still was never able to explain why something was class 77.5 versus 92.5 versus 125. Didn't make sense to me either.
Yeah. I mean, think about the number of different products and just like, in the United States alone, the total SKU count of every retailer and distributor, and it's just not feasible for a single organization like the NMFTA to keep up with that. And I mean, they've tried over the years, and they do capture different products and commodities as they change. And I remember years ago at Old Dominion, like something new hits my desk, and it was kind of a fun challenge. Like, what would this be classified under? And it's kind of this translation thing. Well, it's got a flashlight component, but it charges a battery, and it also does this. And like, what is it? What does it go under? And so
Yeah.
this just makes it more efficient for everybody, and popping open freight, to Scooter's point, that made me think of my time in W&I, walking around with a drill, opening crates and seeing what was inside and how it was configured. And that, honestly, it'll save a lot of time for the carriers as well, where you're just kind of getting that, outside measurement from the furthest point to the furthest point. And there's less fighting and debating over what's inside and is it knocked up or knocked down.
We should not be shipping any pregnant ladies at the
Right.
moment. I don't think that's something we're,
Don't think there's an NMFC code for that. But yeah, I
You
will
know,
say. Oh, go ahead.
I used to ship embalming tables, and then it was close to human bodies. And so there's got to be a freight class for it.
Could be. Yeah, I will say the NMFTA, I think they've done a really great job to the best of their ability at bringing awareness to this
Yeah.
and the change. I mean, Keith has been relentlessly on the road, Keith Peterson there, and preaching it. They've done a very. I'm hoping this ends up kind of like a Y2K event, that like everybody's hair was on fire, and then we're like, okay, we're good. That's
For those
my
of us
hope.
who don't really know what that was like, maybe
Okay,
explain
right.
Y2K. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Damn, I forgot. I'm geriatric. No, yeah. So anyway, my hats off to them to, with the promotion, the training, the availability of being able to check your score, before the changes went into effect. I thought they did a great job of trying to provide tools for everybody. So
Totally.
What's an NMFTA? Just for those listening that don't know the acronym, and like, what do they do? Are they an association, or are they a LTL carrier? What's going on here?
It's a
Yeah,
noun.
they're an association. They're basically the voice of the LTL carriers. They're an association that is there to largely support the LTL carriers.
Okay, well, this is an easy transition. If they are the voice of the LTL carriers, why is it that the biggest LTL carrier out there, FedEx Freight, announced on Monday, July 21st, the Saturday was the 19th, and Monday is the first business day after? They're like, you know what? For the next, what was it, 150 days? We're not going to charge any reclasses or reways in relation to this type of an error if you don't have new training on this. And then I just learning from you guys before the call, they took it a step further, and maybe we should break that down a little bit. They're going to do it a little bit differently. They're like, you know what? We're going to try to reassess how we do the dims and weights. What happened there? What was that planned?
I think it had to have been planned.
Yeah.
I don't think FedEx woke up the Thursday morning before and said, "Hey, this would be a good idea. What do you think?"
Yeah.
I think that the way that they announced it over the weekend, they had it preloaded, ready to go, and it was a preemptive strike. I think it was a means to kind of garner favor with shippers, show them that, hey, we're feeling your pain. And it also, if it's done the way I'm thinking, and I think this is what they're going to be doing, they're going to be working with each of these shippers saying, hey, just so you know, last week I looked at your freight. You used these NMFs on your bill of lading. That's okay. They're not available anymore. They've expired, but we're protecting you. But you really need to go migrate to this. So I think if they do it right, it's going to be a nice, easy way to gently move their shipper base where they need to go, rather than a boom, quick cutoff.
Yeah.
I do think we're probably. Oh, go ahead, Curtis.
I was just going to say to add to that, it gives them additional buffer, both ways. It gives their customer kind of this buffer before being penalized. It gives them another period of time to capture data. And when, generally speaking, because most of their shippers probably work with other carriers, they hopefully will be learning fast and advancing and evolving the NMFCs they're using. So they get that extra, few months of analysis time to see which of their accounts from a pricing perspective might be more impacted. But really, to me, it's a stark reminder that LTL is a unregulated free market, and every carrier can do whatever the heck they want to do. And I love that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it actually is. It was. Now that you say it that way, it's a bit refreshing because it didn't feel like a free market when overlength went into effect at 8 feet and every carrier did it within 2 minutes of each other with the same charges. And then yellow, RIP, decided to go 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 and just be the oddball. But I think that's an interesting point is, Scooter, you're talking about their current customer base, but another angle of it is like a business gain for FedEx could be, hey, if Estes or RNL or Saya or Old Dominion or T-Force, I'm trying not to single anybody out, any of those guys hit you with a few rebills and they're, not working with you, just why don't you just ship it with us?
Mhm.
You don't have to. We'll help you make the change later.
Yep. Well, and it's also opened the door. FedEx really opened the door for any of the other carriers to just say, "Hey, we could selectively do that if we have a certain customer of size that's maybe not cooperating, but they don't have to claim a blanket statement for some of the small, medium-sized folks." So,
Yep.
yeah, I mean any carrier could borrow that and use it to help curry favor. So,
Now, this is a tough question. I don't know the answer to it because it was the way that it rolled out. There used to be Class It and Fast Class. Fast Class is gone. Class It Plus is here, but it wasn't live until the 19th. And so you couldn't really research ahead of time very easily to see how your items might be affected. There was a few ways. There's Excel sheets. But what is like for the shippers out there that maybe were not prepared for this, even though it was all over the place and people talked about it, but they didn't make an operational change? Is it more of an impact for customers who had like a specific code and now they're moving to density based? Or is it for the customers who were density based and now there's like, it used to be 125 and now it's 150? It got bumped up a class. What do you think is the biggest change there for pricing and for shippers' frustrations?
I think it's definitely the customers that had commodities that just had one single class. Like I'm shipping, widgets class 85, and now they're going to this 13 sub table because I could now have pallets that could range from 200 down to 60, and they're all widgets, right? So I think that's where the biggest impact is going to happen is those so many of the items that had just one class. And that was part of the problem with the NMFC to begin with, was they would only study 20 commodities every couple of months to analyze them. And it just takes forever to get through 5,000 items when you're doing 20 at a time. And what they
And then
do
they had
is,
this crazy
so,
update process every quarter.
yeah,
It's like,
it
here's
takes
what
a
we're
year.
changing.
It takes a
And
year
you
to
had to keep
study
up
it
with
and then announce it and then vote on it. So they would take blenders and over a course year decide to move them from 100 to 110 because the density is going down because they're made more plastic than metal. And then 5 years later, they'll study again for a year and bump it to 125. And so you just kept stepping over yourself, doing things over and over again. So just rip the Band-Aid off, roll everything to a density table, and you never have to study blenders again for the rest of your life. They just automatically move
Some
with.
people enjoy studying blenders, Scooter. I don't know. Blenders are fun. Okay, interesting question for you then, Curtis, would be if they're going to move that, like one of the things, and you've been tactical on the customer facing side and in TMS platforms, having one SKU and just having an NMFC code hard coded and loaded is one thing. Having 13 density subclasses, a lot of shippers might not be using a TMS. And if they are, it might not have the UI or the user interface to be able to look up the calculator, figure out -03, -04, put it on there. And they're going to end up just saying, well, I'm just going to put it at class 125 because I did it once and now it's class 125. And then it creates the next headache, which is freight bill auditing and variances that they aren't used to. That's a huge difference. So what do you do to prevent that? And what should shippers do to get ahead of that game?
I think this is going to push a lot of TMS platforms to improve their UI when it comes to their product catalogs and auto populating and trying to, point their users towards the right NMFC. Because you're right.
Yeah.
It does open up and create, other problems that were just a lot more for that shipper that was like, I ship this and it's always class 50. I don't have to dimension my freight. It just is what it is. Like, their life is going to be a little more difficult. There's a bit of a learning curve. So there's flack on both sides of this. The thing to be careful of is, the companies that are just like connecting a few dots and saying, all right, well, maybe we're a dimensioning company, maybe we're TMS, whatever. We're just integrated to Class It Plus. We tell you what you put in the weights and dimensions. We tell you what the right class and subclass and code is. There's still that step of like identifying the right class because it still is class-based pricing, right? Where I've heard a lot of confusion where the industry is moving to density-based pricing, and that's not the case. You still need
it's
a
not
freight
going to
class.
just be the PCF listed. It's PCF 2 to 4, class 250.
Right. And and there are still, so 2000 plus have been, consolidated and moved into other items. There's still 6,000 plus items in total. And some of them are still going to be single class, or it's still going to be partially density rated, meaning, like whether it's in a crate versus on a pallet and the packaging and the risk. And some things are still going to be like, hey, if it's this, it goes at this. And so we still have this like variety of different classifications. So what I'm worried about is all these tech platforms kind of jumping the gun and leapfrogging to, hey, you give us your DIMs and weight and we can tell you what class it's supposed to be. And we're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
I think
Who's
a big
on the hook for that variance?
I think
TMS platform says it's class or this, and it says we got it all integrated, and then it's wrong. The customer's going to be like, hey, I trusted you. You pay the carrier the overage.
Yeah, definitely a disclaimer on that one. I think in the there's a real opportunity, as Curtis stated, for the TMS systems. The big ERP systems, I think, are going to lag behind, and that's going to cause a lot of disruption because you've got these master data files that get updated, once a century, and and having to be able to go back through that in the same situation from a shipper's perspective is how do we get that integrated? How do we get that to calculate it before it passes it into the TMS? So even further upstream, it's going to be a challenge.
All right, Curtis, I'll redirect to you once more because this is your rate hero lane. Does this create more FAKs or does this get rid of FAKs?
My gosh, I hope it gets rid of every FAK. Kill the FAK.
Preach it, brother.
FAKs are a convenience factor, and the carrier doesn't benefit from it. The shipper does. It's more convenient for them. It's riskier for the carrier, so the carrier is going to build in more margin just to account for potential future class mix within the data set, with the shipment profile. So nobody should ever want an FAK, ever. And
Yeah.
I think this
It's hard
will.
to tell shippers that.
I know.
Right.
Well, I'm on my soapbox as much as I can be to convince them, but yeah, FAKs need to die, and I think this is a good opportunity in the grand LTL timeline for that to happen.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Do you think Lance or Scooter, why do you think they went to 13 instead of 11? What was wrong with 11? Didn't
Well,
capture enough? Just wanted to make this even more difficult?
in
Why did
the
they not go to 18? I mean, there are
yeah,
8 classes.
Yeah.
there used to be
And to be
18.
honest, I think
Yeah.
the response was 18 is too many. 13 was like Goldilocks. It was just right. So
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, if I was marketing for them, I'd be like, hey, change everything except for the number of subclasses so that we can just have one thing consistent. But I think more is better because they are trying to get to true density, it sounds like, or at least that's the aim, maybe.
Mhm.
More density is better because you can, I guess, and Scooter, you posted about this on LinkedIn, so maybe I'll let you take it from here, but like packaging more efficiently, custom pallets, all of that can change your freight class down. And if there's an incentive to do that, the carriers want that too. More freight on the truck. It's not just 25 skid spaces anymore. If you can get
yeah,
custom sized 36-inch pallets and that's all it takes, you're shipping more efficiently. They should give an incentive for that. So more density classes would be what you would use.
that's right. And that's even another incentive for getting rid of FAKs because if you're a shipper and you have them, you will never get the benefit of making your product more dense to get that better class. You're going to be
Yeah.
stuck.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And Scooter, I'd love to get your thoughts on, as FedEx is rolling out this dimensional consideration change that's also a little bit of a break from NMFTA. How does that affect from the CubeScan, where you guys are doing it, like that half inch instead of rounding up instead of rounding down?
Is
Um,
that what they're doing? So let's define that. What
yeah.
is FedEx doing differently?
Do you know all
Yeah,
the specifics?
yeah, they're
Yeah,
they're
go
they're
ahead.
definitely they made some changes on the parcel side where they're
Yeah.
rounding up. It's just
Mhm.
some revenue engineering is what they're doing. But I think it's a great point because when you think about FedEx, UPS, parcel, they're measuring everything at that inch level. You're either rounding to the nearest inch or rounding up to the next inch, right? For a box, right? Let's say a 12-inch square box. Well, when you're getting into pallet space, pallets are like 4 times bigger than that. Does it make sense for us to be talking about half-inch precision for revenue purposes? And I don't think it does. I think we live in that world because of FAKs, because they can, that half inch can be the difference between class 85 and class 200. And so the carrier has to catch it that way. So, but I think we're looking at the future where if you get rid of FAKs, you've got all this granular pricing at the density level where you go one class to the next one. I think you're going to find the carriers to be willing to basically look the other way as long as I've got a shipper that's doing a really good job and giving me good data, but I don't agree with them down to the inch level in every dimension. I think we're going to see that really kind of come out from all these changes.
I hope so. That's
That'd be great.
that's a huge LTL pain point. Is like we need to smooth the transition between tiers, whether that's one class to the next, whether that's one overlength tier to the next, maybe even time when it comes to detention and storage and things like that. But these hard cutoffs with a big jump to the next, level of fees, it just that's a big reason I think why LTL is so painful to the average
Mhm.
shipper.
Yeah, I mean, think of cubic capacity, like by the inch. You're thinking of 6 pallets, and now it's like one of the pallets was 50 inches, and you went over your 12 linear feet. I've seen bills from multiple carriers. FedEx is one of them. Estes, like they're hitting you with a cubic capacity rate that's $7,000 more than the quote.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
And
can
I mean,
I can
those are
assure you,
real numbers,
Oh
and I've
yeah.
had to pay them for my customers, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I will not make you pay $7,000.
yeah. And I can assure you that finding a shipment that has that cubic capacity density minimum charge applied to it, and there's no FAK and no classification issue, That doesn't happen. That's why those rules apply, is to protect the carriers from their own FAKs they gave out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It is
But those
interesting,
cliffs,
too.
like, had this been 19 feet and 8 inches, it'd be $1,500 to ship. But because it's 20, it's now going to
Yeah.
be $7,000. Like,
Yeah, it's not you were talking about it, and like overlength is kind of the same, and 95 inches versus 96.1. I mean, it could be with Old Dominion on a blanket, it's $1,000.
Yeah.
It's just $1,000 flat. And if they, I've got a client who ended up cutting all their 96-inch pallets down to 95. And every once in a while, they get hit with one and it's $1,000. And I'm like, well, at least you didn't get hit with all of them. So there's that. Because what are you going to do? Go back and be like, no, it was 95. How did you get it to 95? Well, we cut it. Well, you didn't cut it a half inch. And so that's part of the thing too. I think as it moves to density, what are your guys' thoughts on, do you think, okay, a lot of shippers and brokers have always thought that LTL carriers use the dimensionalizers as a revenue center because they're like, hey, now we finally have a way to bill all this back because we were just taking it for years.
Yeah.
And now they're like, hey, we got you because the freight is hanging over the pallet. Now this dimension is over and they hit you with a reclass. Do you think this starts to clean up reclasses, or do you think it gets even worse now that there's 13?
I think it gets worse before it gets better. But I mean,
shippers be prepared. There's going to be more
absolutely.
I agree with that. But I think over time it will get better. And I think over time it will be, when there's differences, it will be more objective rather than subjective. And I think that there'll be more reasons for carriers to work with shippers on things. The carriers want the data, right? And yes, revenue is a big part of it. But when you talk to the carriers today, what are they getting out of having their dimensioners? It's not revenue as much as it's simply account management. I know the cost and the revenue, and if I can get good data, I know I'm getting good cost and good revenue, accurate, and now I can manage the profitability of that customer better. That's what they're really after, is account management. That's why they want the shippers to capture the data and give it to them so they can get it before the driver even shows up, because now I can manage this customer before I even see the freight. I can optimize my network with their data. That's what they're really trying to get to right now.
Yeah. And if somebody's using an FAK and you have no idea how much space is going to be left on that pickup route,
because they don't give dimensions,
right?
Ever.
So I don't know if I got opportunity cost. Can I use that driver at another stop, before he comes back? Well, we don't know until we get there. That's really tough for planning.
Yeah, LTL missed pickups are the bane of most brokers and logistics providers' existence, because we get the call at 4:30. Driver isn't here. We call the terminal. He says, I ran out of room.
Yeah.
And it's not my fault because I wasn't using the FAKs. It's somebody else on that route said, it was actually 60-inch skids, but it was class 70. You just didn't know.
Yeah. You're welcome.
And then you got to tell your customer, well, why would they accept the pickup if they can't make it? And I'm like, well, here's
They're
a
already
complexity
there.
of LTL. 20% of pickups are missed, and it's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, carrier W&I departments, I think, have been, like your example of your customer that started cutting their skids shorter. I mean, that's really what it's for. Drive changes in behavior and push them to tender more carrier-centric freight. Like they have pretty hard constraints with all these trailers that aren't movable. The walls can't expand. The inside of a pup trailer is about 99 inches from wall to wall, and that doesn't change. So,
maybe we should make trailers
behavior
that
change.
transform. That could be a big industry, Curtis. After you take Rate Hero to the moon, let's do that.
Start on trailer manufacturing. Yeah.
Custom
Start
trailers that
buying
can
a whole bunch of
expand.
hinges right now and sliders.
No, so let's take this a different direction. We have customers out there, they're shipper clients of all types. All of us have shipper clients and broker clients, etc. What if they weren't prepared? What's something that you guys can give them that's tactical? Hey, I didn't update yet. I'm going to have to do it, but I've already shipped a bunch of stuff that isn't the correct NMFC code. What course of action should I take to get that cleaned up so I don't have a big headache and my boss yells at me about LTL cost in August?
Communicate. Call all your carriers as soon as possible. Tell them you're on it. If you need to identify which ones, you can still check through the NMFC. They've got a website where you can check the codes you're using now. But yeah, get ahead of it.
Yeah. Yeah, Lance is right. The NMFTA, they've done a great job. You go out to their website, you fill out a form, you put in the NMF item numbers you're shipping with, and it tells you whether, hey, you're good, keep on using that one, or that one just expired. You need to be using a different, and they even tell you which one to use. And if you don't know, ask your carriers, ask your 3PL. And I'd be looking at those invoices coming in right now rather than
Yeah,
waiting
it's been
until
about
you pay them in
7
30,
days.
45 days, and now you've got a mountain of it. I'd be looking at them right now and seeing, where am I getting differences? Where is my quote not matching the invoice? Where am I getting invoices that appear to have a reclass fee or a reweigh fee? I'd want to get in front of that and see that as quickly as I can.
Yeah. Because the wave is still going to come, in my opinion. Like, even with the year plus of marketing and communication from the NMFTA, where Keith Peterson probably has status on every airline and hotel in the country at this point. He's been at every conference. Like, they've done what they can do.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, probably 15, maybe 20% of companies got ahead of it. And the big wave of all the ones that are like, oh crap, my invoice is higher, they're going to start popping up in the next month or so.
Yeah.
So
It's human nature. It'll fix itself.
Yeah.
I don't understand it, so I'll wait until I get rebuild, then I'll fix it. But one of the
Yeah.
things we did at Rocket is we manually updated in our TMS every NMFC code that we could identify on Saturday and Sunday, and we still missed some. And now we just ran a report from last week and said these shipments are still in transit and they had the wrong NMFC code. And then we're sending it to the carriers and asking for a corrected bill before they even bill us. And we're just like, hey, will you just update this now? And most of them have been like, yeah, we'll get that done. They're not going to hit us with the reweigh or the reclass, really. But I think that most of the industry is just waiting to get hit with the variances. But it's kind of funny to me. I think there's a lot of people who will just pay the rebills for an extended period of time because there's not that much sophistication in LTL supply chain as much as people think. Not everybody has a freight bill audit tool or a way to like actually audit. They do it quarterly sometimes instead of by invoice. And so there's going to be a large amount of companies who are just paying the carriers the extra revenue, the corrected revenue. And they're just like, why did our LTL costs go up by 3.4%? Fuel, maybe.
I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah,
It's
you're
just a
right.
cost of doing business, right? And that cost just went up a little bit, but I'm just going to keep absorbing it. I think you're right. There's going to be some that's not going to be the inflection point that causes change. I think that when business gets a little healthier, the carriers start getting tighter on capacity. If I'm a carrier and I can only pick up one more pallet today, and I got two customers, one gives me great data, one doesn't, who am I going to go pick up today? I think that's where we're going to start seeing even more behavior take place when the carriers start using their service and other things like that to help show the customers, here's what I need you to do to help me help you.
Well, we saw that during the 2021, 2022, mostly 2022, when it really capacity just went haywire. It was, you have a drop trailer, but you're only filling it 3/4. We're going to do live load.
Yeah.
And that was, you might have had that drop trailer for a decade with the same carrier, and they're like, we don't have the equipment. And so when that stuff happens, they didn't have as much. It was so quick last time, but they're probably more prepared this time to be like, hey, we have shippers of choice where we know they can keep the trailers. You don't give us data. You can have live load, and we might pick up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. If only there was a
I think this
score
will,
like that.
Yeah, scorecard. But that's a big point. I think that's going to be part of it, is that the carriers, they're smart. They're getting smarter every day. The carriers themselves have done an amazing job internally of optimizing everything that they can control. That's why they're still operating pretty well, even in a really bad environment. Go stack the LTL carriers up against their truckload peers. It's night and day in terms of the margins they're still making, right? Because
I'm going
they
to clip
figured
that.
out. Yeah,
Send it to all of my customers who ask me why their LTL price is not as good as the truckload market, spot market, and I'm like, oh, this is why.
Yeah, I mean,
Pricing discipline.
they're managing their business really well. The last horizon for them is getting the shippers to do what the carriers need them to do, to pull even more cost out. To pull cost out of that billing and collecting process, it's a huge cost center for the carriers. And for them to do that, they got to get shippers to give them good data digitally so that they can cut all those costs out. And to really do that, they've got to monetize it somehow and incent those shippers to do it. So I think that's going to be another thing we see is the carriers putting with their money where their mouth is, saying, you do this for me, I'll do this for you.
Something I skimmed over. I think that this is a huge, like, not a breaking point, but at least an inflection point between carriers and large 3PL brokers. Because if you imagine, not going to name names actually, but one of the large LTL brokers out there, they might have 10,000 customers or more, all not using the right NMFC codes. So it's kind of incumbent on them to update their systems because they're paying the carriers. It's not one shipper to one carrier. It's a huge. And so the ones who do that effectively and make it easier for the carriers, I can see them getting a different tariff than the ones who don't give them good data at a large scale.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a weird. The reason I say it's an inflection point is because 2018, 2019, then COVID, like 3PLs and the carriers have had an evolving relationship over the last 7 years.
Oh.
They have their favorites now. It used to all just be 3PL channel. It's not that way anymore. And so this might be another reason. Hey, now you can actually get a different discount basis if you give us this type of data. And it's not that the tech isn't there. It's the compliance from the customer who's entering those orders. That's a big push, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think that temperament's changed significantly just in the last, 10 years, where 3PLs used to be the absolute enemy for LTO carriers. Like, they hated them, all of them, forget it. And now they're looked at as, hey, these guys can actually be partners to help move efficiency needles, for our shippers, and we can
Get
actually work with them.
compliance on the new guidelines. We don't have to meet with every one of those customers. They'll just meet with the big 3PL and make sure they're doing it well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As one carrier exec used to say, I love a party, just not a third party. But no, I
I'll give
see
you that
like
one.
these events, just looking at the last 5 years in LTL, like COVID being a big one, this NMFC update being a big one. It's kind of like a combine rolling through a field, and it separates the wheat from the chaff. And the middle's getting hollowed out. It's getting harder and harder just to be a mediocre, fly under the radar LTL shipper. You're either gonna, back to your example of those that just pay it because they don't have the sophistication to do anything different, they're gonna hate LTL even more. But then you have others that have gotten ahead of, they understand their freight and their classification, and they're using freight facts, and they're becoming a better shipper. They're going to love LTL even more. And so it's going to give them, for both brokers and shippers, going to give them an advantage over their peers. And it's doable. It's possible. Like every single company out there that ships or touches LTL can be on that good side. It's a choice and an investment that they have to make.
Yeah.
I totally agreed.
I think if
All right,
I'm running a
go ahead,
3P,
Lance.
I think if I'm running a 3PL, I'm looking for all those apathetic shippers that are just paying the fees.
Yeah. Could I just have your last 90 days? I'm going to wait a quarter. Can I have your last 90 days of freight bills? Let me audit them and let me tell you what you should have paid.
Mhm.
You'd have just quoted it correctly. Because I think, generally speaking, that shippers who lack that sophistication think they're just paying what they would have paid. But like the bill correction fees do cost money. And like it's not like they have that waived always. So if you quote it correctly on the front end, my favorite example is like a residential delivery. They're like, oh, we just missed it, but we'll pay it on the back end. I'm like, well, you rate shopped 10 carriers. They do not charge the same for residential delivery. Or liftgate. You chose Southeastern and they charge X amount for liftgate, but RNL was only $5 more on the quote. And you forgot to put liftgate on there. They would have been $45 less because they had a free liftgate. So you got to look at that with bill correction and all of that side as well. I'm going to spice things up a little bit. We might even cut this out after I ask it, but we'll see. What happened with Fast Class and Classit? Like, is Classit a product of NMFTA and not SMC3?
Uh,
And how did SMC3 just like shut down their classing product? I used to always use it. Was there a battle there?
I can't speak to the why. I just
Yeah.
know that class IT was it was in the early days. It was really cumbersome to use because you had to, is it bigger than a bread box, and and it had to go through this whole description, multiple steps to it. We integrated into Bannon and stuff, and so I think there's a lot more efficiencies now, but the NMFTA owns that, so
Yeah.
it's really up to them on
Yeah, it's their IP.
who they want it. It's their IP, so they want to
It
share
is
it.
an interesting. I mean, it's a great business move. I know they're a nonprofit. I think, right? They're a nonprofit, but it's still a business.
So's SMC3. So.
Yes,
Yeah.
I didn't know that SMC3.
Nonprofit.
But if Fast Class was like a better product at the time, and it was easier to find your codes, and then it got sunset, and I didn't know why that happened, and I kind of found that out this summer, and I'm like, okay, because I don't use it daily anymore. I don't run the day-to-day ops, and I haven't logged in for a while. But I went to try to make an AI tool. I thought it was going to be so cool. I was going to make a front end. You can type in your current NMFC code, and the LLM will tell you if it's changing. And I loaded all these classic Excel document, and it was just too difficult. And then I realized we just needed to integrate Classic Plus into the front end of the TMS. That's the only way to do it.
There you go.
But here's an interesting tidbit. Classic Plus could, and I don't know if they will, and I don't have any affiliation to any of them, so I'm fine asking the questions. They could Netflix a lot of people. And by that, I mean, there's a lot of shared logins out there for their old product, like thousands of shared logins, and it's about $150 a year for a license. But I noticed now you get a notification when someone else logs in from a different IP address to the main
Yeah.
one on ours. I was like, oh,
Mm.
I might have to have multiple licenses. Well, I'm a small company. It doesn't affect me that much. But boy, oh boy, there's some big companies using one license. They could Netflix us.
Yeah.
It's a lot of revenue. Probably, this is just a guess. Instead of $150 a year, I bet they could be getting out of one big 3PL or another, they could be getting $75,000 a year.
Yeah, I
They
don't
have
think they will.
a lot of sales reps use
I
Class IP.
I mean, a few months back when they came out with their revised pricing on Classic Plus and API connectivity, I kind of called them out a little bit on how expensive their API connectivity got, and I mean that kind of makes sense because there's way more value to that. It's there's tech and platform costs and integrations
Yeah.
to up maintain, but given they're like, okay, in the current state of the world where we just had the biggest carrier in the market kind of divert from what they're saying, plus you think through like the NMFTA is making these changes to stay more relevant with current times. Like they are who they are at their core. They're a freight classification organization. Um, they they can't really fully innovate to like be just density based because then you don't need them anymore, right? Like they're walking a fine line where it's like, hey,
There's a lot of that in this industry. Yeah.
we need to kind of progress and make this solution simpler. I guess my point is I don't think they're gonna like throw anything like that would further discourage
Disrupt.
people from using what they're selling. Basically, like they might be a nonprofit, but they have to maintain value and relevancy in this open market. And if they're like, well, we're just banking on the fact that everybody has to and will use this, and we're gonna Netflix you all, and you know, uh, I mean, charges are quadrupling for licenses and seats. I just don't see that happening.
And yet we've got C.H. Robinson that built some classic tools on top of the NMFTA's tools.
Right.
So
Did they?
that,
Okay.
that
I was actually looking into trying to figure out if I'm legally allowed to do that. And it was fuzzy. It was gray. I was like, well, why don't I just build an LLM that knows everything that Class IT knows?
Well, you can probably do that for your own company to better utilize their IP, but you can't resell it for others to use.
Yeah.
right.
But if I was a large reseller, which I'm not, but if I was, then it would be gray area because it's like, well, how many? You're kind of going around the product. If you just integrate that into your TMS, then it's one license for everybody. It is interesting, but I'm going to do that at Rocket, not what I just said. I'm going to enhance it and just say, hey, the user interface should be a lot easier. They should just enter in their description, and the LLM can go find what that actually matches and their weights and dims, and it should just fill in the TMS, the freight class. They shouldn't have to click it.
Yeah.
But you do that too quickly, like Curtis said, then you don't get it right. Who wants that liability?
Yeah.
Asterisk.
And then just
on
put a little,
everything.
you should always verify your freight class before booking with rocket shipping.
Yeah. I like that
Correct.
though, Gabe. I think that is the future of LTL, like user experience. It's not, NMFTA, SMC, all these major carriers, they're either never going to change or going to take a long time to change, but anybody can build, middleware and better, smarter, especially with AI now. I mean, at Rate Hero, we built a tariff bot, Tariff Hero, that interacts with rules tariffs of carriers, and
Yeah.
same sort of thing. It's not changing anything. It's still, like TurboTax didn't change the IRS tax code. They just made it a lot easier to navigate.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that everything will be in prompting, and it'll just be like, so like our best operations leaders, they know how to use that fast class and class it better than anybody, right? They know exactly how to search it and know what it means. It's not very difficult to imagine an LLM knowing that and just enhancing the LTL user who's logged in. And it's like, hey, you said furniture, but I need to know if it's this type of furniture or this type, and then here's your class. It's not that far away.
No. Especially if they've
So-
got master data files and descriptions and some other things, or even catalog data,
Yeah.
with associated to the product. Yeah.
Train
As
the
long as
model.
it's a trained
So-
model, yeah, I definitely
Yeah.
wouldn't trust ChatGPT or any of these LLMs in their current form. I mean,
No.
you could ask it a question, it'll give you an NMFC code from 10 years ago, and you could say, okay, is this good to put on yellow freight today? And they'd say, yep, give it to yellow freight today.
But what's crazy about that is it's so confident in its answer too. It's like,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you
course
bet,
it is.
buddy. But you can pretty easily, without any coding experience now, take ChatGPT's API and train a closed model, and you feed it the documentation, and you just give it a prompt that you're not allowed to know anything else. You can't search the internet. You can only know this. I've done that for other products, so it's not that far off from this. I don't think Rocket's going to probably build that. It's not really what we're focusing on. But someone's got a doorbell. Is that doorbell? You're getting a freight delivery, probably curbside. They're bringing it threshold. Now, okay, let's wrap it up with this. So LTL market, we talked about the NMFC changes. We talked about NMFTA. We talked about FedEx. How's the LTL market looking, gentlemen? What do you guys think of this current market? Scooter, you think about it a lot. I know it's like it keeps you up at night, and you think about the fact that the pricing is still where it's at. You have all these analysis. I read it all, but where do we think it's going? I don't see anybody in LTL talking about that very much. Like truckload, it's the only thing people talk about is, well, what's the market? LTL is so much longer term that we don't. But where are we at?
We're deep into a freight recession where, thank goodness Yellow closed their doors. That kind of helped everybody out a little bit. But think about it. I mean, we're even with Yellow being absorbed, everyone is still pretty much down, right? And there's nothing on the horizon. So the carriers I think, are doing a great job, but they're obviously bleeding some margin away just because of inflation and lower business levels. They're not growing like they would like to. But I think we're at a point where it's not going to take a whole lot. The LTL industry is small compared to parcel on one end and truckload on the other. The parcel guys are doing a ton right now to drive business out of their networks, especially UPS and FedEx with oversized rules pushing it towards LTL. So I think it doesn't take much for the LTL industry to start seeing a little bit more business flowing its way. And I think it can be a big game changer for everybody. So I think we're on the cusp of some really good things happening. We just have to get this tariff nonsense behind us and get a few things going where once the economy starts getting its feet under it, truckload gets a little bit better. I think LTL is going to be in great shape.
I'll go to you next, Lance. So for the audience listening, and if we clip this up, Yellow going out of business, that was 2023. It's now 2 full years. I think it's about 2 full years. I should know, but I think it was in July.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what, 5 billion or 3 billion? They didn't actually
Well,
always
Closer
publish
to
that, but it
3,
was
I think.
It was about
was
5.
was
lots.
5, but 2 weeks before, then it went to 3 pretty
Right.
quick.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was-
Yeah, which week are you talking about?
yeah.
You'd think it would have gone to 0, but a lot of people
Right.
held on.
Yeah.
But
Um,
you would have expected, in short term, it did. It kind of like overnight, the 3PLs took increases from the carriers and they tried to say, hey, we're going to have to embargo. And then it was like, it was Y2K, which I don't actually know about, but it was Y2K. Nothing happened. I mean,
no.
it helped the carriers, but it was not a like, no, we can't handle the volume.
Right.
So there was
Right.
a gaping hole of volume that no one realized was there, even though the carriers were kind of down a little bit from 2022. But
Sure.
2022 was a record. Of course, they were down.
Yeah, of course.
And now it's like a lingering recession.
Well,
And most industries don't understand it. Freight does. But
yeah.
LTL has not recovered. Pricing has, they've been able to get some GRIs and some pricing discipline, as they call it in quotes, but
Yeah.
it's not like the past.
Yeah, and I think you had a lot of terminals, you had a lot of capacity go offline, and now they're starting to this year they really started to come back online, which is now like, okay, we've got to get the volume to start making these things efficient. LTL is big in commercial industrial sector, and with all the tariff uncertainty, it's, do I order parts for my machines? How are
Yeah.
things going to go? So that uncertainty is really, I see rippling into what I thought was going to be like a really good recovering market. And I think everybody just pulled back. But now that we're starting to see some of those tariff deals go through,
The
it's like,
EU
okay,
today. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and some other ones that have hit. Okay, great.
Japan.
Now can we all get back to business? And that's the only driver I see on the horizon. Scooter, to your point, is like, what's going to change that's going to cause the industry to shift around. It's like, I think that level of certainty that people can start going, okay, I know what they are. We'll adjust and let's go. So
All
I'm
right. I
hopeful
agree.
that that's Q4. We're going to start seeing a bump coming out.
I was uniquely, I guess I would say, exposed to those tariffs. Rocket was, because we do so much residential deliveries, and almost all of our clients, I mean, 80% of the ecom clients were ordering from somewhere else than the US. And so it was like, hey, we're not going to order anymore, and we might not pay you, but if we stay in business, we'll keep shipping with you. And so that was an interesting arbitrage that we had to pull off. But also, that volume never did drop. Like, they did actually order the
Right.
volume, and they did just pay, as far as our customer base. And maybe we only have 400 customers. It's not the whole market, but it was an indication that volumes kind of stayed the same. I didn't see a huge uptick in June like everybody predicted. They're like, all the Port of LA is going to be flooded. And it wasn't. And there was so much capacity in the truckload that it was like, oh, it's flooded and it's gone. It just sucked up all the volume. So I think it would take everybody ordering and some type of an event to actually drive a real recovery. I think it's just going to continue to be like, hopefully not up and to the right, but just up a little bit. It would be nice. I always say on every podcast I talk about it, but I don't mind it being lower for longer, because we're growing into a new market where, like, we just get new customer acquisition to grow. If there was ever a time that we actually had customers grow, that would be real, real sweet. 2021 was really fun. I was like, hey, we have customers and they just got bigger. That doesn't happen in freight right now. And that's why people, a lot of news has been made there. Curtis, I'll take your opinion on this last one, or this second to last question, which is like, where are we at in the market? You can take it any angle you want.
I agree with both of these guys. I think too, part of the reason that LTL is so complex and a highly networked business, it makes the industry more resilient when it comes to periods like this, where if you look at truckload, it's a very simple market pendulum. You have a commoditized service and you have supply and demand, and there's just, it's either that side or that side. LTL is like a multi-hinged pendulum where every carrier has so many levers they can pull. They can lean more into e-com and home delivery and final mile. A lot of them are kind of leaning back into the grocery and food and beverage world right now, as that's a pretty consistent, resilient vertical. So I think that's why you never see these big swings in pricing. Like, yeah, when capacity is, there's more available capacity and the market is somewhat softer, you're going to see LTL service go up, and carriers aren't scrambling, and their nets aren't overloaded with fish every morning, so they have a little more time to service. But I think we're going to see these minor peaks and valleys for the next several quarters, I think. But all these major carriers are sitting on, additional capacity by way of yellow terminals they bought, and they're not all online yet. They're not even sold. They're not even all sold yet.
Yeah, some of them, they don't want them to be online yet, is what I am seeing.
Right. It
They're
makes
like, "No, we
sense.
don't need to
Absolutely.
Yeah.
open that. No rush. We don't need that Idaho terminal." Okay.
But take a look at, Saya and Southeastern's LinkedIn pages. They're building brand new terminals and bringing them online, at a
Saya's
pretty
being
good
very
pace.
aggressive for
Like,
sure.
they're
Mhm.
building for the long term. So
Yeah.
I almost don't even care or bother thinking about, like, I think there's more meat on the bone when it comes to getting good pricing, which when you ask how the market is, that's what most shippers really want to know is, what's my pricing? They're going to have a better shot at getting good pricing by being a good shipper. And right now, this NMFC change, period in time is like we said, a good opportunity to kind of like separate yourself from the chaff and lean into the stuff you should be doing in your carrier relationships and knowing your freight and your data better. And in the long run, the market can do whatever it wants. I mean, truckload soft, so LTL's not getting a bunch of spillover from there right now. Like Scooter mentioned, parcels putting in stuff to penalize, longer, bulkier parcel type shipments. So that's probably driving the average shipment size and weight in LTL down a little bit as there's more
Which is good for
spillover from
Rocket.
the parcel
Keep doing
side.
it, UPS and FedEx. Keep doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the benefit and the cost to being this very capable kind of complex industry in the middle of two much bigger industries. But the price we pay is everyone hates us, and and the benefit is there's always business. It's job security.
Yep.
All right, I got to break some news, and then I'm going to get your predictions. And maybe this summer, maybe this fall, maybe next year, I'll be able to send the clip and be like, "Hey, you predicted this was going to happen, and it did." It's always fun to try. DAT acquires Convoy. I didn't see that coming. This is Convoy platform now bought twice. Flexport had it, and they were doing some things it looked like. And now DAT has it. DAT has bought Outgo. I don't know what the name of it is, but it was like a payments platform factoring, I think. I don't know. And they bought Convoy. That's not what we're going to talk about exactly, but that's interesting. Some consolidation on that side of the business, freight tech. Is there going to be consolidation in LTL? Does anybody want to take any guesses at any consolidation? And if you actually know and you can't break the news, just tell me anyways, and I will. I'm kidding. Uh, but does anyone want to take a crack at a LTL carrier? Is Knight Swift going to be active again? Who knows? Is there a new LTL carrier? What's going to happen in the next quarter or 2 quarters?
I think there will be consolidation. I don't know if it'll be in the next 2 quarters. I think everybody's just kind of like operating with what they have right now, so I'd be a little surprised. But yeah, I think we will see more regionals getting gobbled up. Uh, but major consolidations, I don't know. Not for maybe the next year.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Night Swifts. They've been pretty vocal about the hole they have in the Northeast. I suspect that they have talked with carriers up there and have made some offers, and they're probably still conversing. So, that shoe will drop at some point. But I
Did you
think
say
that
who was that? Sorry,
yeah,
I missed it.
I don't know who it's going to be or if it's going to be
Oh,
anybody. I think it's going to be really hard for them to organically grow into the Northeast. It's growing into the Northeast. That's almost as hard as growing into California.
Yeah.
You just need to go buy somebody to operate in those two areas. They're so difficult to service.
and you're
That's
talking
why.
Knight Swift. Sorry, I missed that
Yeah,
part. You
yeah,
just
Night
yeah.
Swift.
So
Yeah,
Knight Swift buys Ward. That's Scooter's prediction. I'm kidding.
I think they're going to buy somebody up there. I think they have to.
Yeah.
But I think there is to me there's an obvious premium, at least for the publicly traded carriers. I think there is a premium for being long haul versus regional. I think that you get rewarded for that. And so I think that we're going to see more consolidation with that, with those regional carriers trying to become super regional, not so much national, but super regional.
I like it.
I agree.
Curtis, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Scooter. I think and again, I don't know if it's going to be immediate, but I think we'll see more of like the Dorn buying Sutton type acquisitions where it's a larger regional.
Dayton and Valley Cartage.
Right.
Valley
Like there's a huge opportunity for smaller carriers to grow with cheaper tech and just, a lot of people, a lot of good people available in the industry right now with layoffs and things like that. So I think we'll see the smaller ones grow bigger and then kind of start this cycle of like those ones being kind of picked off and chosen.
Yeah, that's what I think is going to happen. Like Mountain Valley and what other company was out there? Like they merged or
DC,
whatever it was.
yeah.
And I feel like somebody is going to eventually go, okay, you figured out the tech and the systems and you got the customer base all aligned. Now I would like to buy you. And it's like a little step ladder.
Yeah.
Because it's really difficult to buy 3 regional carriers to have the full coverage. It's not that hard to buy one that's figured it out among 3. Cross country freight systems keeps buying companies. So that might continue to expand into the Mountain West region. I think, an outside chance, and I did get this right the first time with the Teamsters Union. I had no idea Yellow was going to go bankrupt, but I thought that was going to be a big deal when they were renegotiating. Teamsters is going to renegotiate again, I think, next year. ABF, T-Force Freight. That could be my prediction. Is Bedard says T-Force UPS Freight was a really bad idea, but look at how shiny ABF is, and they are. And ABF, Arc Best, they're not loving truckload. They might want to, get some cash, maybe a little bit of a shiny object. So I think it's T-Force ABF become one. Same
Could be.
labor force, and they're both publicly traded, makes it a lot easier to do a deal like that. So.
Yeah.
Although 2 private companies is way easier, but if you're both public, you can just do the stock things and make it happen. So, all right, that's my prediction. Guys, I appreciate you making time. Where do we find you? Assuming someone's listening to this and they want to do business with FreightFax, Rate, Hero, Scooter, at Cubascan, Scooter Scan, where do they reach out? What's the easiest way to get a hold of you guys?
Find me at freightfax.io.
All right.
All right.
RateHero.io or LinkedIn. I'm pretty easy to find.
Yep. Just find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way. So
All
All right.
probably not too many
Okay.
scooters out there anyway. So
All right, now give us all your personal cell phone numbers. No, I'm kidding. No, great work, guys. I appreciate the time, and thanks for tuning in, everybody, to another episode of Let's Talk Logistics.